Am I the a-hole for giving my siblings what they want by refusing to spend time around them and their kids? I'm 20 male, 12 years younger than my sister, and 14 years younger than my brother. I remember them always disliking me. I'm 100% their full biological brother. My parents are my biological parents. That was something I used to question, but my dad and I did 23andMe to alleviate my fears. What my parents think is that my siblings were jealous of me when I was born, and extended family believes the same. They never seemed that excited and used to act like I was crazy, wild, and out of control. They even said stuff about me being impossible to control when nobody else was around. But they were never alone with me. They avoided me when I was a kid and moved out while I was still young. I was maybe 10 when they started talking about me being a terror as a little kid. They even called me a monster and said I almost put them off having kids. Our relationship never changed. They ignored my birthdays, ignored my graduation, and didn't invite me to their weddings or baby showers. They've said in group chats repeatedly that they don't want me around their kids, saying they don't want their kids to be wild little monsters like I used to be. Everyone has called them out on their behavior, but they insist they won't let me influence their kids. Nobody else has ever complained about me as a kid like that. At school, I was even considered too quiet and shy. Teachers struggled to get me to socialize or speak in class. Friends even said I was the quietest and have zero idea where this comes from. After years of hearing it, having them avoid me, and saying they don't want me around their kids, I've decided I won't be. I'll skip anything they attend, so I don't have to spend any time around them or their kids. The rest of my family tells me I shouldn't do that, because my nieces and nephews deserve to know me. But it's more of a headache than it's worth, and there's no guarantee I'd even be allowed to say hi to them. My parents went nuts on my siblings over this and said how disgusting their treatment of me has always been. They told me my siblings are in the wrong, and I should just ignore them. But it feels like too much BS to tolerate, so why not give my siblings what they want and live a more peaceful life? Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Wow, after 20 years, parents finally grew a spine and told your siblings that they are the monsters, not you. Sad that it took them that long. Not the a-hole, your siblings are complete a-holes here. Hope the rest of your family will grow a spine as well and give them a slap back to reality check, because they need it. Right? I'm 11 and 12 years younger than my siblings. Full siblings, not half. My parents would have never allowed them to treat me that way. And my nibblings and siblings benefited too. I was around to be another set of hands when they needed it. Maybe the siblings need to be excluded for a bit. They need a serious come-to-Jesus chat and should have gotten it 15 years ago. Not the a-hole, your siblings have been hating you for years for no reason and bad-mouthing you around and even insulting you and going to the point of shunning you out and excluding you, and your extended family expects you to just deal with it? No, give your siblings what they want. The only little entitled terrors is them. They can tell their own children why their uncle isn't part of their lives because they are just self-centered a-holes that never matured past the age of 12 and 14. Their kids were taught I am not their uncle, so maybe they'll never care or consider me an uncle. That's gotta be confusing though, because I know my parents talk about me and label me as such. Not the a-hole, but don't be a doormat. Don't skip any events because they'll be there. Just go and ignore them. Pay them no mind and just give them the same energy. Why ruin your relationship with your family because they will be there? They feel so strongly about it, they can skip out. Don't give them what they want. Because it makes me unhappy to be around them. That's why giving them what they want also makes my life better. My family might hate it, but ignoring them just isn't enough for me to enjoy myself. No, my dude. You need to embrace the petty. Let the rest of the family in on the joke, and then show up to family gatherings in a blue mohawk wig and fake tattoos all over. Animal from the Muppets inspired grunge rock clothing. And flip-flop between that look and something that screams corporate lawyer. So that siblings never know who's showing up to Christmas, but Nana knows it's a game and is in on it. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to lend my brother 10 grand after he spent all his savings on a luxury car and now wants me to bail him out? So I, 28 female, have a brother 30 male who's always struggled with money. He makes a decent salary but has never been good at saving. A few months ago, he bought a super expensive luxury car, draining his savings, maxing out credit cards, and borrowing money from everyone. Now he's behind on payments and called me last week asking for $10,000 to keep the car from being repossessed. I told him no. I've worked hard for my money, and I can't justify giving him that much when he's been irresponsible with his finances. He got mad, saying I'm being selfish and that I should help because we're family. He even said that if the roles were reversed, he'd help me out. I told him I don't trust him with money after everything that's happened, and I'm not going to keep bailing him out. Now he's telling our parents I'm being unreasonable, and they're pressuring me to help. He has taken it further and is threatening to take my dog, since it was a present he got me for my birthday. Am I the a-hole for refusing to lend my brother $10,000 after he spent all his savings on a luxury car and now wants me to bail him out? Let your parents bail his butt out. Siblings are not entitled to each other's assets. He can't afford car is not life-threatening emergency. I get similar calls from my siblings because I made smarter choices in life. Maybe no one should bail him out? A 30-year-old is old enough to live with the consequences of their very bad decision to buy a car they couldn't afford. Not the a-hole. He can sell the car and get something cheaper. This could be a good lesson for him if no one bails him out. He'd never help you if you ended up in this situation, as he wouldn't have the money either. If your parents feel so strongly about it, they can lend it themselves. I agree. Sometimes the best help is letting someone face the consequences and learn from it. If he steals your dog, file charges. I am hoping you have vet records. I suggested OP getting the dog chipped to avoid this. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to go no contact with my aunt and uncle and telling mom I'd rather go no contact with her and her family? My dad died when I, 21 male, was 5. My mom didn't like my dad's siblings, so she stopped me from seeing them for over a year, and they had to go to court and fight for the right to see me through what's considered grandparent visitation, but can be applied to other biological relatives who had a significant role in your life prior to the death of your parent. It was shown to be in my best interest to maintain the relationship with my aunt and uncle, so they won and got to see me twice a month. My mom ended up remarrying, and her husband's finances were a mess when they met. He also had, I think, 3 kids he was supposed to pay for and didn't, but also didn't see. Then he and my mom had kids together. My aunt and uncle knew about the financial issues, so they would buy school supplies for me, put money into my school lunch account, or give me the money to do it if there was any issue with them doing it directly. They also bought me essentials when I was with them. My mom told them they couldn't see me anymore if they didn't buy for the other kids, but my aunt and uncle brought up the visitation order. My mom tried to remove their visitation and even used the fact that both were now married, and I now had an extra aunt and uncle, but mom said they were strangers who shouldn't be around me. My uncle argued that mom's husband was a stranger who shouldn't have been brought into my life. She said getting another dad is different from an aunt or uncle's spouse. I told mom I didn't have another dad. She blamed my disrespect on my aunt and uncle. Finances at mom's house kept getting worse, and because of my aunt and uncle, I never suffered as badly. Mom was mad because she wasn't allowed to keep me away from them legally and couldn't afford to move to get me away from them. There were times all the food at mom's house was from a food bank or soup kitchen. Clothes and other stuff were provided by charities. I never had to struggle as much. My mom made a point of telling me my aunt and uncle were disgusting people for letting my half-siblings do without. When I turned 18, I moved in with some friends and distanced myself from my mom, and I saw my aunt and uncle more. It bothered mom a lot. She told me she didn't understand me having a relationship with them when they would let my half-siblings starve. I told her they had no obligation to kids not related to them. After a couple of years of this and me ignoring mom 99% of the time, she's demanding I go no contact with my aunt and uncle so I can be her son and her kid's brother. She said I should be disgusted that they wouldn't take care of my family and the siblings I love. I told her I would never go no contact with my aunt and uncle, and I'd rather go no contact with her and her family, and that I was shocked she didn't pick up on that since I haven't seen her kids in more than 2 years and hardly ever respond to her texts or DMs. Mom said my half-siblings don't deserve this, and that she certainly doesn't. I told her she wrecked our stability by marrying her a-hole of a husband, and after that, she had no right to expect me to show that kind of loyalty. She started going off in my DMs, so I muted her, and now I'm just considering my options. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. As an adult, you can choose your family. You can also decide to cut some members out. Go no contact with your bio mom and let her fester in the mess she created. Go live your best life with those who truly care about you and your well-being. Not the a-hole. That's something I really enjoy doing already. My friends who I live with are family to me and me to them. We all come from less than perfect homes. My aunts and uncles have also become their honorary aunts and uncles. There's a good reason why your aunt and uncle have been given that honor by your housemates. There is, and I know we've become one pretty nice makeshift family by choice. One thing that blows my mind is that your mom married a deadbeat dad who already didn't take care of the children he brought into the world. She knew he wasn't a good provider, but decided to have more children with him. And then she's mad at your uncle and aunt for not stepping in and bridging the gap? Your half-siblings are the responsibility of their parents, not their older half-brother or your aunt and uncle. Next time she gives you grief, ask which auntie and uncle of her husband's older kids stepped up and paid the way for the kids he owes child support to. And maybe she should ask those strangers to also support the kids he had with her. The damned audacity. Good Lord. My mom only cared about what she wanted. That was so clear when she chose to move him in and marry him knowing he had so much debt and years of money issues that she then made the two of us live with. And then for her to act shocked when I didn't want him called my second dad? F my life. Not the a-hole. Your mom is reaping what she sowed. No contact is maybe even too friendly. I'm surprised no one called CPS on them. Live your life with positive people around you. My aunt and uncle actually did once. They were concerned because of how tight things were, and my mom refused to let them send stuff over for me. Last story. Am I the a-hole for making sure my daughter has everything she needs? I have a child, 14 female, with my ex. I was ordered to pay $1,000 a month in child support, which is fine. I can afford it, and I'll do anything for my child. But the problem is, isn't this money supposed to be used on my child? I don't feel like that's the case. I don't understand why my child wears hand-me-downs or eats cheap, crappy food. So I've started sending extra stuff. Like on the days I know her mom can't give her a ride, I'll get her a taxi, or I'll order food for her and send it to their house. On the nights she tells me her mom is making nuggets or something like that. Well, her mom thinks I'm an a-hole and that this is causing problems in her house. Not sure why that's my problem. I feel like everyone was so busy with what is best for my ex that they didn't even care about what is best for my child. I have 50-50 custody, and I gladly agreed to pay child support, but only because I was told the money would go towards making sure my daughter has similar lifestyles in both houses. And this is not what happened. I understand my ex's situation, I really do. She is disabled, and aside from my child, she has an older kid from a deadbeat and 2 younger ones with her husband. She wants to treat them all equally, but frankly, I don't care about them. I don't understand her mindset of, don't send things to your daughter because it makes the other kids jealous. If you want to send something, send it for all of the kids. Those aren't my kids. I understand that $1,000 a month is not much money, but if I'm paying for her insurance, medical bills, school, hobbies, allowance, and all of her other expenses during the 50% of the time that she's with me, that means her mom is only responsible for 50% of her basic needs. So how hard can it be to make sure those needs are met? I get told that she pays for electricity and toilet paper and water bills, etc. Well, so do I. And if it's such a problem, then from now on I will give my daughter some toilet paper to take to her mom's house. I get told that I should also pay my ex for her effort, for helping my daughter with homework and preparing her meals. Why? Is that not her child too? And if I'm going to pay for every freaking thing, I might as well hire a nanny who does the job well. I don't understand the mindset of, so what if your child is eating fast food every other night? What if she has to walk for 30 minutes in an unsafe neighborhood? Those are all fine, until my daughter gets sick or gets kidnapped or worse. If I can prevent it, why shouldn't I? Do I really need to wait for something to happen to her? Because if I send my daughter a taxi, it will hurt her kids' feelings? Well, I'm sorry. I don't give a damn about her kids' feelings when it comes to my child's health and safety. I have made my decision. I'm taking her back to court, and I'm getting full custody of my child now that my daughter gets a say. I didn't try for full custody before because I felt like it would be a selfish decision to not let her be raised by her mom at least half the time. But now I feel like it would be a selfish decision not to make sure my daughter is safe and healthy and happy. And if that makes me an a-hole, I'm just going to have to get used to it. I think child support also helps pay rent and bills, as well as her clothes and food. I think buying her clothes to have there is fine, but I personally think sending food because she doesn't like what they're having is going too far. Child support also pays rent, utilities, food, school needs, etc. I don't know where you guys live, but that much may not go too far. Sounds like the mom is trying to make the most out of the money she has and gets. You're trying so hard to frame the mom as neglectful, and yet the only examples you have is her wearing hand-me-downs and eating chicken nuggets. I don't know where anyone is getting that she's not cared for. She is. You're just being an a-hole for some reason. In your own biased opinion, you haven't provided anything that suggests she'd being neglected in any way. $1,000 a month in a high cost of living area isn't much either. So again, not sure why people are falling over themselves about it. This is just a single mom bad post. Look, I'm not trying to frame her as neglectful or anything else. What I'm saying is that I didn't work my butt off so that my daughter gets to live in poverty. I also didn't work my butt off to end up paying for someone else's family. What is the point of having this job and this life if I can't share it with my only child? And my daughter is frustrated. She comes home to me and she has a comfortable life. And just as she is starting to get used to it, she has to leave and go live in a small crowded house where she can't even have some quiet time or a nice meal. This is just not working for us. Do you want full or more custody? Maybe it would be better for your kid if she spent more time with you. Full custody. Of course she can visit her mom whenever she wants, but I want her to live with me. This is what I would do in your case. You provide plenty for your child. The mother should also be providing. If she can't manage it with a husband, then that's not your problem to take care of her other 3 kids. Your main concern is your daughter. If she wants to live with you, then go back to court.
Am I the a-hole for opening my husband's safe with a crowbar to get money for an emergency? I'm female 31, I'm a stay-at-home mom with 2 kids. My husband dedicates most of his salary towards the kids and household, but has a safe that he puts money in on a monthly basis. I didn't make a fuss over it, because he said that he saved money for an emergency. I asked for the password countless of times, but he refused to give it to me and said that in case of an emergency, all I needed to do was inform him. He went on a 2-day business trip. Our son got sick and I had to take him to the hospital. The problem is, he needed medication but I didn't have any money except what was in the safe. I called my husband but he didn't respond. I texted him explaining the situation but he refused to cut his trip short and come home. I asked how I was supposed to get money for medication, and he suggested I either A, wait for him till he gets home, or B, borrow money from the neighbors. I just had it. I hung up and went to the garage to grab a crowbar, then took it to the safe and opened it. I took the money I needed, which was about $60, and went to the pharmacy store to get the medication. My husband came home a bit earlier, and when he saw what I'd done to the safe, he flipped out and started freaking out at me. I said I had no choice, and that all his suggestions were unreasonable and illogical for me to even consider. He yelled, saying I breached his trust and his boundaries, and should have never touched the safe, much less used the crowbar on it. We had a big argument, and he kept saying that I had no respect for him, his income, and instructions. Then he completely refused to speak to me and is threatening to move the safe since he no longer trusts me around it. Was I in the wrong for the steps I took? Should I have tried another alternative? Edit. I didn't have any credit cards because he's the one that normally has them since they're in his name, and I don't have a bank account to be able to own a credit card. Now for the top comments. This is financial abuse, and it's absolutely insane. Go to the neighbors and borrow money? Seriously? If my neighbor came to me and asked to borrow money because her husband left on a 2-day business trip and left her with no money, I'd call Adult Protective Services. I'd ask if she needed help getting to a women's shelter with her kids. It's 2022. Never mind the fact that as the working parent, he should have set up an account for you, the caregiver, with a few $100s for care expenses at all times. But like $60 for an extremely sick child? We live in an age of instant transfers, and there's a huge big box of money to home, and it says borrow it from the neighbors? Not stay whole times infinity. You and your children are victims of mistreatment. You need to get out, my dear. So much this. Get out. Run. If only it were so easy. That's why people financially mistreat spouses so that they can't leave. Opie couldn't even get her hands on $60 for kids' medicine without taking drastic measures. How is she supposed to just leave the house? I would assume she's socially isolated, especially since she didn't have friends/family she could call for help either. And she might even be in a rural area, without access to services like a women's shelter. I'm not saying she shouldn't start planning and squirreling away what she can, but just saying run for the hills isn't exactly helpful in these scenarios. She should absolutely start hiding away money whenever she can, and make copies of all important documents as well. Frankly, her best bet would have been to clear out that safe entirely and run with it. But she definitely needs to start making a plan to become independent of her husband, because he's controlling and that is dangerous. Not stay whole. You do realize that the fact that he cares more about money and this supposed breach of trust than your son's health is highly concerning, right? This behavior is not normal. The fact that he left you with no money and you have access to no money is financial abuse. Let him move the safe, all the way out of the house along with his sorry butt. Nah, don't let him move the safe. She should take the rest of the money in it and deposit it into a bank account in her name, then kick him out. She'll need the money to live on until the divorce is finalized. Next story. Am I the a-hole for leaving my sick wife to deal with 2 toddlers on her own? I'd like to give a little bit of background first. I'm male 36 and my wife, female 35, have a 3-year-old daughter. I have a long-standing issues with my wife's sister-in-law because I think that my wife constantly panders to her and caters to her every whim, often at the expense of me and my daughter. Recently, we had a huge fight about her saying something offensive to me in a public setting in defense of sister-in-law at our daughter's expense. And up until this point, she has tried to do better. Now, we've been both floored with flu for the past 10 days or so. Negative COVID tests. She seems to have it slightly worse than me. So I've been tagged in to do all chores, childcare, and cooking while she's tried to get as much rest as possible. This has now trickled into a week I booked off work on holiday, which doesn't bother me in itself because I'd rather make sure they were both okay. I am, however, starting to feel really run down myself now. I'm tired. I've had limited opportunity to rest and catch up on sleep, and I'm sore. Today my wife woke up at around 9:15 a.m. I'd been up since 6:30 with daughter and said she was feeling a bit better. I said that's great, and maybe she could hold the fort while I went for a nap. She said that what she was actually thinking was inviting sister-in-law's youngest around for a playdate to keep our daughter occupied. For reference, she's 3. This isn't an uncommon thing to happen. Sister-in-law often brings her kids to us. And for reasons I still don't understand, our daughter was never invited to spend an afternoon with them in their house. I said that I really wasn't feeling up to it today. My wife said that I wouldn't have to do anything to entertain them, to which I was skeptical about, but I agreed. So about 15 minutes after she arrives, I'm asked to get them drinks and snacks and then play games and occupy them. Now, I'm aware that I'd have needed to do this for my own daughter, but going from 1 to 2 toddlers is such a huge leap in terms of the demand on your time and energy. Add this to the fact that I was feeling lousy and it just wasn't a good mix. I'm off work this week, and on top of my illness, I didn't sign up for extra childcare duties. After about 2 hours, I told my wife that I was going up to my mom's house to get a sleep. The whole way up, she was phoning and texting me, absolutely furious that I'd left her to deal with it. I'm literally lying in my mom's spare bed writing this now, but my brain is too wired to sleep. Am I the a-hole? I know it's horrible leaving her while she's sick to deal with 2 toddlers, but after so long holding the ball, I've reached my limit. Not the a-hole at all. You told her you needed rest, and she decided to have a guest over? You should have just gone to take a nap as soon as the other kid arrived. God, I wish I had done this, right as sister-in-law walked in. Why would she invite a toddler over when both of you are still sick? The toddler could pick up the flu at your house and bring it home with her. Exactly. And now, Opie, you are at your mom's house while ill? This whole thing is an absolute disaster. Have we forgotten the flu can also be dangerous? The whole thing is irrational. If children were going to be doing play dates, Opie's toddler should have gone to sister-in-law's. And then both Opie and the wife could rest. Not the a-hole. First of all, you are both sick. Why would your wife want to potentially give that to her niece? Secondly, when both parents are ill and in general is a team effort, you should have your fair share of rest. Otherwise, all that is gonna happen is one will get better whilst the other runs themselves down, physically and emotionally. Your wife invited her around, and your wife should look after her. Next story. Am I the a-hole for yelling at my wife after she woke me up to help with the kids? My wife, Sonia, is a stay-at-home mom to our 2 children, 7 male and 5 female. I really try to help with the kids when I get home. I know being a stay-at-home mom is pretty tiring, even though she has part-time off from school, but helping with homework, making food, and taking care of kids can be exhausting. So when I get home, I make dinner, wash the dishes, and stay with our children for a while so she can have her moment too. These weeks have been pretty exhausting. It is a very important month professionally because in November will be the delivery of a 6-month project that my team and I are idealizing. Last week was the final touches and review of the entire project. So I went to work at 8 a.m., got home at 5 p.m., took care of my kids until 9 p.m., and was actually working until 3 to 4 a.m. to maybe get 3 or 4 hours of sleep. I have trouble sleeping. So if I slept 12 hours in 5 days, it was a lot. I was exhausted. I wasn't even driving because I didn't trust my senses to drive. I couldn't vent to Sonia because she was stressed too as our children had a flu. I was dragged to the hospital by my coworkers after nearly passing out for only walking. The doctor demanded that I take a week's medical leave because I was already on the verge of a burnout. When I got home, I spoke to my wife and she seemed to be understanding. I asked her to give me a day off from everything as I would try to get as much sleep as possible that night to come back better. She said fine. I offered to also give her a day off because I know she was tired too. I went to sleep at 9 p.m. and woke up to Sonia nudging me to take the kids to school. I walked with them. I talked about what we talked about yesterday and she said, yeah, but that's your part of the morning and I have other morning plans. Yoga class, gym, and house cleaning. I asked her 3 times more to do this for me as I was still exhausted. 6:30 a.m. But she just said, you're still a father, tired or not. It could be tired or not, but I ended up losing my mind and screaming, I just need a few hours of sleep. Please respect what I asked of you yesterday and let me sleep. She was in shock and said, okay then. She took the kids and I slept until 4 p.m. There were several messages from her saying that I shouldn't have yelled at her for asking me to take responsibility as a parent and that it was toxic behavior of mine. Well, we haven't talked much more than necessary for 2 days. Am I the a-hole? Yes, I could take them, but as I said in the text, I have a lot of trouble sleeping. After getting up and taking them, it would take a good few hours to get back to sleep, even when exhausted. I answered in the comments and I'll put it as extra. 1. Our children stay from 7:15 a.m. until 1 p.m. at school. My wife picks them up from school and stays with them until 5 p.m. when I get home. 2. The things she does, gym and yoga, take up 2 hours a day. When she gets home, she cleans the house, sweeps, waters the plants, washes clothes, makes lunch, absolutely everything in the house. I don't think the division of tasks is so unfair because I'm not 100% the one who takes care of the kids at night. While I make dinner and wash the dishes, she stays with them and we also have family moments. My kids are in the spirit seeing face, series and movie 8,000 times. I don't think it's that unfair because it's chaotic sometimes. And I know that being responsible for our kids all day is exhausting, so I offer the same to her later. I couldn't put all this in a post due to limited words. Now for the comments. Given the context, not day home. A doctor literally ordered you to rest, and your wife agreed to help you. If roles were reversed and you took time off work to step in for your wife, you would be the a-hole for waking her up. She didn't respect your valid medical need to rest. Your doctor even ordered a week of medical leave to rest. If this isn't a recurring thing outside of this isolated incident, not the a-hole. I agree. Well, I'm just assuming here, Opie's wife didn't need to go to the gym or yoga if it was just for fun, and could have walked the kids to school since Opie's doctor literally ordered him to rest. It would have been a different story if the doctor had it otherwise. This right here. Also, it appears that the wife gets a 2-hour break every day for yoga/gym. When does Opie get his 2-hour per day break? Not the a-hole. As a rule, I tend to go with you're the a-hole or everyone sucks here when it comes to yelling at people. But while I'm still not a fan even in this situation, it came after trying to be reasonable 3 times. I also usually see the men on here with stay-at-home wives as a-holes because they think their wives should wait on them hand and foot. That's clearly not the case here. It sounds like she has unfair expectations of you. You were literally sick, and she wanted to do yoga. You may apologize to her for yelling, but you standing your ground was not toxic. A good loving wife wouldn't be trying to argue fairness when you're sick from exhaustion. She needs a wake-up call about her entitlement. So let me get this straight. You take the kids to school. They're in school until what, 3? She watches them for 2 hours, then you take over? And otherwise, she does the cooking and housework. Yeah, cooking and housework is a lot, but come on. That's not really a fair division of labor. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my husband drive my son to school with his step-siblings anymore? Context. My ex-husband and I have custody of our 11-year-old son. He's diabetic, and since his diagnosis is relatively new, we're still working on managing things for him so he could continue to live a normal life just like other kids. His stepdad is responsible for dropping him off/picking him up from school, since his step-siblings attend the same school. The issue began when my son started asking me or his bio-dad to take him to school instead of his stepdad. He said a reason for that is because his step-siblings open his lunchbox and take all the additional snacks that he needs in case he had a hypoglycemic episode. That's what we call low blood sugar. His step-siblings would take his lunchbox from him and take the snacks, and only leave him his sandwich and water. His stepdad thinks there's nothing wrong with sharing, although I explained to him about a millionth times how important his snacks are. He promised that he won't let his kids touch my son's lunchbox from now on, and I believed him. Then days ago, my son came home and told me his step-siblings took his snacks from his lunchbox again. I was enraged. I asked if his stepdad saw them. He said yes, and he scolded him when he refused to let them have the snacks. I lost it. I blew up at my husband and told him that my son won't be riding in his car again with his step-siblings after what they've done, and after he allowed it. I told him that my son's father will be driving him to and from school from now on. He lashed out at me saying that I was driving a wedge between the kids and teaching my son to grow up being selfish and self-centered and antisocial, and also making my son distant from him and getting him to favor his bio-dad. I refused to discuss it, and now he's acting all hurt and disrespected, saying it was not worth ruining the kids' relationship over some snacks. Edited? His argument is that I don't get his kids the same amount of snacks I get for my son. They go through their snacks in no time. In my defense, I said that the snacks are part of my son's diabetes management routine, and he, unlike his step-siblings, needs them anytime. And so I don't feel like I'm obligated or that I should buy step-siblings the same amount of snacks, seeing that they can do without them for a while. Am I making sense here? My stepchildren's ages are 13 and 10. Unless your husband has some kind of rare cognitive impairment, that means he doesn't understand the meaning of medical condition. He's the one who's the a-hole here, not you. As a longtime Reddit fan, my first instinct is, of course, to suggest dumping him, but I'm trying to curb that instinct. Aw, come on, you know you want to. Maybe just this once. You know, for old time's sake. Just joking with you. But yeah, I agree, the husband is either a bully or an idiot that doesn't understand how dangerous this medical condition can be. Even if he doesn't understand the severity of the medical issues, he does understand that his sons are stealing the majority of his stepson's lunch. If he thought it was unfair his stepson got so many more snacks, he could easily pack snacks for his sons. He is definitely a bully rather than an idiot. Not the a-hole, but maybe it's time to have a conversation with your husband about possibly modifying the custody arrangement for your son, because he is neglecting the boy's very real medical needs in a way that can have very dire health consequences. Also, taking all of something is not sharing. Modify the custody arrangements? How about modifying the marriage arrangements? Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay for a former friend's daughter's college? I'm male 37, had a friend Roy, male 37, when I was in high school. We were friends for years prior to graduating and remained friends some years after. I considered him my best friend. At one point he had a daughter, May, and I became her godfather at his and his partner's request. At the time, I was still living with a bunch of friends from high school, one of which was my roommate Taylor and his brother Jordan. Roy split with his wife during this time, and since I was his closest friend, I convinced the other guys to let Roy move in. Jordan had never liked me from the get-go and attempted to drive wedges between my friends and I. He did this whenever I wasn't around, and I didn't realize how bad it had gotten until it was too late. He'd make shrewd comments about my girlfriend being out of my league and my career amongst other things. And a few people who remained my friends told me in more detail that he lied about me, like saying I had trashed the kitchen when it was really him. And despite them trying to defend me, their words fell on deaf ears. I wasn't aware, but apparently even Roy believed Jordan. Our lease was ending near this point, and Jordan, Taylor, and Roy had plotted behind my back to kick me out. We live in a 5-bedroom, and one of our roommates was leaving. But because of Jordan, many of my friends were uncomfortable moving in with me. So, they decided to kick me out to bring 2 new people in, informing me about a month before the lease ended. I was betrayed and hurt, most of all by Roy, the person I considered a brother. After I got kicked out, I struggled on my own for a while. I was 24 at a time, and I had a decent job, which is the only reason I made it on my own, even if it was just barely. That career set me up well for my future, to the point that I now live very comfortably to say the least. Flash forward about 6 years later, and Jordan drunkenly told Taylor and Roy that he had purposely gotten me kicked out, and that devolved into him spilling his guts about the situation. Turns out he was jealous of my girlfriend, who is now my wife, and how easy my life looked. Roy and the others attempted to reconcile, and though I tried, it never felt right. I remained low contact. That brings us to now. May graduated, and they asked me to help pay for her college since I'm her godfather. I refused, based on the events of over 10 years ago now, and the fact that I hadn't been treated like her godfather in over a decade. He, his family, and my mother all seem to think I'm in the wrong, while my wife is annoyed they have the balls to ask. I genuinely don't feel like I am, but I'm sick of being pestered by so many. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for refusing to pay for college? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Never heard of a godparent being asked to help pay for college, especially when they haven't been involved in a kid's life. Ignore them. Who came up with that? Someone who didn't save for their own kid's education. I'm with your wife here. They have a lot of nerve. Not the a-hole. She is absolutely fuming at this. She was with me through the whole experience, so she knows firsthand how much this hurt me when it happened. I didn't think I was the a-hole, but so many people are on me about it that I wasn't sure. Not the a-hole. Listen to your wife who has been by your side when your best friend who knew you better than anyone stabbed you in the back. Your ex-best friend's entitlement is astounding. So are you just supposed to forget all the hurt he has caused you? And the fact that due to his actions, you had no relationship with your godchild all those years and just quite happily hand over your money? Just no. And all those people saying you should pay, well, turn it around on them and ask them how much they are willing to pay. I bet you the excuses will be fast and furious. You're right. Honestly, thinking about it, it makes me really proud she has my back. I couldn't ask for a better spouse. She is everything. I'm proud to call myself hers. And that is also a great point. It isn't some small fee. May is going to need a lot for her engineering classes. I don't know how much anyone else is even contributing. Next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking out my 22 female friend, 21 female, for demanding I pay rent for my apartment? My friend Dee and I have been living in the apartment my parents own for college. We split utility bills, while she also pays 300 euros for rent. It's 2 bedrooms, living room, kitchen, and a half bathrooms in a nice area. And 300 euros is not nearly how much rent for that place would cost under normal circumstances. Nevertheless, our parents are civil with each other, so the massive discount was agreed upon on the premise that we split utility. I don't pay rent as my parents own it, but work and spend my own money for daily needs and groceries. Dee doesn't either. Her parents pay everything. So for a year now, Dee has been inviting her college friend, who I'll call Amy, to study at our place, sometimes sleep over. Amy lives off campus, but in a really dodgy area with her older brother and his friend. More than a month ago, Dee asked if Amy can stay over for a week. I told her no problem, because I had a vacation set for that time. When I got back 9 days later, she was still at our place. So I asked Dee when Amy was going home, as I had planned for my friend to come over for the weekend. She told me Amy got into a fight with her brother and didn't want to be there right now. I was annoyed, but I never found an issue with Amy, so I just asked she leave until the end of the week. She didn't. 3 weeks passed and bills came in, which were almost double of what they were previously. I sat down Dee, gave her a rundown of the bills, and she seemed surprised. She told me I'm not paying that much. I looked at her and made a joke. Yeah, you're not. Your dad is. Dee got angry and went into her room, Thought the joke didn't land well, so I knocked on her door to apologize. But I overheard Dee ranting how I don't pay for anything, so I wouldn't understand why her parents are mad. I entered the room, told Amy to pick up her stuff and leave. She seemed embarrassed, but 20 minutes later she left. I asked Dee what she meant by that, and she said, "The bills are twice as much as last month's, and Dad is going insane over why he has to pay this much when you even had a guest over." I told her she's a hypocrite if she thinks my friend staying over for a weekend affected the bills nearly as much as Amy living here for a month. She told me I'm heartless for blaming Amy, who was having a hard time, for the increased bills, and screamed I should contribute more to them. Then she called her dad in the bathroom and demanded that I pay rent too, because it's unfair. I told her she's insane if she thinks I should pay rent in my own apartment, and that she has until the start of the semester to find another place and move out. Dee started crying and throwing some towels on the ground. She did move out a few days ago, and we haven't spoken since, but Amy texted me apologizing for burdening me. My parents told me it wasn't my decision to make, even though they agree. Now, I'm not sure if I was an a-hole for making her move out or for how I acted towards both her and Amy. Not the a-hole, it's just pure logic. People are too soft and illogical these days. If she feels so inclined to help someone out, then she should do so from her own pocket. Exactly. Help your friend all you want, but not on somebody else's dime. Yep, some people just don't get how they're forcing problems onto other people, and when confronted, want to say stuff about moral high ground. Sorry that sucks, but it literally has nothing to do with OP's life. I once had a roommate who would take in stray animals, then criticize me for not helping out. I'd say, "You chose this charity, not me." Apparently, this made me a selfish a-hole. Not the a-hole. It's done and sorted. Move on and study well. Thank you. Not the a-hole. Rooming with a friend is a great way to lose a friend. Find a roommate who seems responsible and charge the full rent. Yep, better to be roommates before friends. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling a friend that I can't be there after her F-buddy died? My friend started seeing a guy who told her he was married and had kids. He just wanted a physical relationship, and she was okay with that, she said. 6 months later, she was mad that he didn't want to leave his wife for her, and she went to tell his wife. So that ended their little setup, but his wife forgave him. 4 years later, my friend contacts him again on Facebook. She apologizes and tells him that now she is ready for just a physical relationship. Everything's going great, until 6 months later, and after a quick morning session, he tells my friend he's not feeling well. He drives home and dies after getting home. My friend finds out because she doesn't hear from him for some days and calls a mutual friend of theirs who tells her. She's hysterical when she calls me. I get that it's a shock, and then his wife found their secret messages on his phone. My friend finds out the date of his burial and she insists she's going. I tell her not to. She attends, but his sister tells her to go home. Every time we talk, she's talking about him and how she's visiting his grave and is leaving little trinkets, hearts and frames by his grave. I ask her if she has thought about how his wife and kids might feel about this, but she insists that she's in mourning and this is her way of dealing with it. I might be insensitive, but I tell her I find it disrespectful, and that if this was her husband, would she want her dead husband's F-buddy doing that? So in her own words, I'm insensitive and probably an a-hole. I'm just confused because she has told me many times that their rendezvous was just physical and that's all she wanted. So am I the a-hole for putting some distance between this friend and myself and not being there as much as I probably would have had it been a friend or family member of hers who had died? Edit. I know many are questioning my own morals by being her friend. There are many things I wish I had done differently. After his death, she called me and was hysterical. Her wanting to go to his funeral and now visiting his grave is something I've talked to her out of. I've never supported any of what she's doing with this guy. We've known each other since we were little as how our moms know each other and all that. So it's gonna create some contention. Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. I would distance myself from someone who thought all of that was acceptable. She thinks you are insensitive? Says the mistress who showed up at his funeral. Wow. Yeah, this is not a situation I would want to be anywhere close to. Fully agreed, not the a-hole, but you will beat yourself if you don't GTFO before you get caught up in something worse. Not the a-hole. Why are you friends with someone who thinks it's okay to behave like this? At the moment, we're low contact. If we speak, I tell her my opinion about these visits she's making to his grave. so I'm definitely the minority here. But what your friend is experiencing is called disenfranchised grief. It happens when a person's grief is deemed unacceptable due to societal norms. She needs to see a therapist, or her behavior may worsen. What she has done is wrong, but people do not always have a rational reaction to grief. Also, she's getting a lot of hate in these comments, but the only person responsible for this man's wife's feelings is the guy who is dead now. I can't stand a cheater. He's ruined multiple lives, and is not even here anymore to answer for it. Cheaters are the worst, but homewreckers are a close second. I don't know why she's morally in the clear for hooking up with a married man, just because she's not the one in the relationship. People have a responsibility to demonstrate a basic level of decency and concern for the lives and feelings of others, even strangers. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my friend it was too damn bad she was uncomfortable? I work as a kind of personal assistant / art handler and organizer to an individual with an extensive collection. It's an interesting job, and I get a lot of opportunities for new experiences and invitations to events. My boss and I do not have the same tastes in art. He's an older, very traditional guy, and that reflects in the events I get invited to and the people that I'm interacting with at these events. We have a world-famous opera in our city, and I was gifted 2 tickets to the opera last weekend, with an invitation to attend a pre-show cocktail party in a private area. This was not a work event for me, but still a networking opportunity and a gift from my boss's personal friend. My fiancé was visiting family, so I invited my friend Sarah to join me. She arrived at my house Saturday afternoon to get ready with me. She had brought a dress to wear that I didn't think she should. It was very pretty, but more like a club dress than an event dress. Bright pink and very short. And our opera is known for a no dress code, just be fabulous approach, so it was fine for the venue itself, but I knew the pre-party was going to be an older, more traditional opera dress crowd. I myself wore a deep green floor-length dress for reference. I offered her the option of choosing something out of my closet, and told her that I thought she might be uncomfortable at a party because of the type of group they were. But she wanted to wear that dress, so I didn't push it. At a party, most of the attendees didn't seem interested in engaging with her, and while outwardly polite, it did feel like they were equally uncomfortable with her presence, as she was being there. She stayed next to me the whole time, which was fine, but she was sullen and kept grabbing my arm to whisper in my ear that we should leave. After the 3rd time, Sarah pulled me out of the conversation and told me she wanted us to leave the party. I got irritated and told her it was too damn bad that she was uncomfortable. I warned her. There are 2 bars out in the public area. She could go hang out there and I'd join her in an hour for the show, but I couldn't leave yet without looking bad. I might not have been working, but I accepted the invitation. And now my behavior here reflects on my boss, and that ultimately affects my job, regardless of it not being officially work. Sarah stayed at a party instead, and eventually it was over and we attended a show. She didn't speak to me at all on the drive home, and texted me after I dropped her off that she was upset by the way I had treated her, and that I should have left when she wanted. I think that's unfair. I talk about my job all the time, and she knows very well that expectations are placed on me at these events, and how I am expected to act. I tried to tell her, but obviously I wasn't going to force her to change. But she's still mad, and a mutual friend is guilting me for not caring about Sarah's comfort, and I'm starting to feel a little bad. And I don't know, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Fair warning was given prior to the event, as well as an opportunity to change attire. That being said, I don't know the extent of the warning given, and perhaps a bit more detailed explanation should be given next time to ensure the individual in question knows exactly what might occur. Sometimes communicating a warning doesn't match the level of internal concern due to not wanting to insult the person, resulting in them not thinking too much about it, and it may be possible that was the case. Her feelings are somewhat justified, as it sucks being judged like that. But as mentioned, you're not the a-hole here. I just want to add though, while I'm sure there was judgment, Sarah's behavior probably made it worse than just wearing an inappropriate outfit. When you're uncomfortable, you can appear standoffish. Additionally, it sounds like Sarah was standing next to OP the entire time, while also choosing not to engage with others. She pulled OP out of 3 separate conversations. How rude. She was whispering, which is also rude, and obviously wanted to leave with her body language. And she saw OP's formal floor-length dress, so that should have been enough of a clue. OP, in the future, make sure to only bring people who are comfortable holding their own. The seeing OP's formal-length dress is the big thing for me. I feel like if you're the plus one for an event, you should be matching the formality level as the one bringing you along. Especially if you're an outsider, you don't want to be standing out because of the clothes you wear. If anything, Sarah should have been coordinating with OP before even leaving her home to make sure her outfit would be appropriate. Not the a-hole. Sarah came as your guest to what she knew was a career-related function for you. She insisted on dressing inappropriately when advised against it, and her repeated demands that you leave because she was as uncomfortable as you told her she would be were immature and self-absorbed. And so was her refusal to retreat to an area where she might be more comfortable and let you finish working the room. So is her sulking and involving another friend who wasn't there, knows only her side of the story and should STF you instead of getting in the middle. I predict you'll find yourself outgrowing friends like Sarah in about 5, 4, 3, 2. Am I the a-hole for not forgiving my wife for kissing another guy even though she was suffering from PPD? My wife gave birth about 1 year ago and she changed. She was angry all the time, suspicious and paranoid of everyone. I think her mother filled her head against me. She would constantly accuse me of cheating, and mother-in-law and her would talk bad about me on the phone when I was not home. One day, she said she's leaving me and her mother was packing her stuff. She left with our daughter to her mother's house. Later that night, she called me and told me that she kissed a guy and asked me how it feels to be cheated on, accusing me again of being a cheater and how I betrayed her. I finally had enough and told her to not come back. Then she started blowing up my phone, and I refused to reply back or take up her calls. She did show up in our house after 2 days and asked me for help with her mental state. I took her to the hospital and she was diagnosed with PPD and was put on medication. She started slowly returning back to her normal self. I think she has healed and can manage by herself from now on, so it was the right time for me to divorce her. So I served her divorce papers a few days ago. She's not happy about it and begging me to not divorce her. She's blaming it on PPD. I understand that her head was messed up, but I don't tolerate cheating. If she had stabbed me or something, I would have forgiven her, but I just don't tolerate cheating. So I am proceeding with divorce. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Her mom did not do her any favors. Tell her to talk to her mom about this. Yes, mother-in-law was living the stereotype. It infuriates me to think of a mother messing up a daughter's marriage and mental health like this. I've experienced this firsthand. It literally took 10 freaking years to repair all the damage. The symptoms you are describing, paranoia and delusions, do not fit with postpartum depression. They sound more like postpartum psychosis. This is very different and very serious. It can cause paranoia, delusions, and hallucinations. Are you sure your interpretation of the diagnosis is correct? Years ago, when I worked in mental health, I worked with a social worker who had to have a client section because she had visited, and the client was oiling up the baby on a baking tray and about to put it in the oven because she thought it was a chicken. Postpartum psychosis. Well, mom certainly is toxic. I'm reminded of the Reddit story about a guy whose PPD wife was good friends with her neighbor. Neighbor poisoned the water there as well, told the PPD wife that the husband was a cheater. Coming home late, cheater. On the phone, cheater, etc., etc. Husband was not cheating. He was working more hours to save money and did everything he could to help PPD wife. Tried to get her meds. PPD wife became inconsolable over the cheating and left him and the baby. She eventually took her own life because of the lies of a toxic neighbor. Then toxic neighbor had the absolute gall to ask him if she could speak at a funeral. It was so sad. No, it was tragic. Just saying that your wife may be, or had been, in an easily manipulative state. Her mother is feeding her garbage about you, and perhaps that should be taken into account before pulling a trigger like divorce. Sounds to me like she kissed the guy to punish you, not to sleep with him. It's immature, but I don't consider it cheating. I've been cheated on, so normally I jump on a cheat wagon fast. But just be hesitant to divorce someone who isn't in their right mind, who someone they trusted implicitly was feeding them lies while they were in a depressive state, and did something that she would absolutely not have done if those things weren't in play. I mean, did you ever have any concerns about cheating before all this happened? If you value the marriage and family, it might be worth getting your wife the help she needs with her depression, go to counseling together, and then decide whether or not the marriage will work. Next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my boyfriend and his kid out because his son was constantly scaring my baby on purpose? I was diagnosed with PPD, so I'm not sure if this is playing a part in my actions or not. I've been with my boyfriend for 6 years, and he has a 12-year-old son, Jake. I've owned my home for nearly 10 years now. They moved in 2 years ago. Our daughter is 3 months old. Now, Jake loves his sister. He's always holding her and trying to help. But there's been a massive issue since I had her with him purposely scaring her, walking up to her and yelling "Rah!" He thinks it's hilarious when she does startle reflexes and then laughs when she cries, saying, "Aw, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare her like that," but continues laughing and continues purposely trying to scare her. At least 4 times a day. Now, I have always told him to cut the crap. I've told him several times that he is hurting her ears. I've told him several times that it's not funny. And then not even 3 days ago, I lost it entirely and told my boyfriend and him that if he purposely scared my kid again, then they would be evicted and gone from my constant life. I said this because while my boyfriend does correct his kids sometimes, he also tells me I'm overreacting. I said that it's natural for kids to think it's funny when babies get startled, and I simply don't understand because I've never been around multiple kids. His son has a half-brother and apparently did the same with him when he was a baby. But anyways, I lost it and threatened to kick them out. And in that moment, I truly felt like an a-hole because Jake looked sad and just went to his room. But last night I stepped out of the room for a minute and my daughter was in her swing. Jake went to sit here, and when I was out of the room, I heard Jake, very loudly and fast, say, "What are you doing?" in a baby voice, and my daughter starts screaming immediately following. I heard my boyfriend take care of it. And then an hour later, I went to the bathroom and the baby was in her seat. Then I heard "rah" followed by the baby crying, yet again. So I told them to pack their stuff and get out now. I didn't wait for a response, because now I'm trying to calm down my baby. Jake tried apologizing and said it was a habit, and my boyfriend started protesting, saying it's not a big deal, and I just refused to acknowledge their excuses and told them to leave. My boyfriend sat down on a chair, said he wasn't going anywhere, and that this is his house too. So I said I would leave then, and have a cop serve him an eviction notice. He tried begging me to calm down and kept saying, "He's freaking 12. What do you expect? He's not going to be perfect." I left and this morning I filed for their eviction. Everyone thinks I'm being ridiculous here, but Jake refuses to stop and I'm tired of him purposely yelling in my daughter's face to scare her 4+ times a day. Edited to add, I also have asked Jake why he does this, and he has said he thinks it's funny when kids cry. Not the a-hole. Yes, he's 12. Old enough to know better and to not do it. Old enough to listen to instructions. Would he like it if you startled him every morning? No. He's 12 but he's being an a-hole, and it sounds almost sadistic. Yeah, it will escalate when the baby is no longer scared by it. I hope he needs to protect herself and the baby at her home. I hope she sees this in case she starts backpedaling. That's exactly what I was thinking. If he thinks it's funny when babies cry, when she no longer jumps at scares, will he do little things to hurt her in order to make her cry? Not the a-hole. Jake thinks it's funny to scare a baby and laughs when she cries. I would consider his behavior abuse, especially since he's been told numerous times to stop. Even after threatened with eviction, he still did it. It almost seems like a power trip to him, picking on a smaller person with the express intent of scaring them. It might be that he is jealous because he isn't getting all of the attention. Regardless, he needs help. And repeated trauma experience for a 3-month-old baby startling them to tears multiple times a day is traumatizing, begins to program their brain. This level of early development is so crucial. The accidents we do as parents and family are enough to break them. Repeatedly being yelled at and startled by a random monster her brain has no means to process is a surefire way to mess up her development, permanently. The fact that the dad doesn't know that nor defend the baby from it, and like others have said, likely wise not with a second mother and baby in his role as a dad, is an unforgivable offense. Next story. Am I the a-hole for giving my children permission to defend themselves and ruining my brother's visit? My brother has 2 stepkids, 10 and 8, that are absolute brats. He is infatuated with their mother though, so he will not discipline them. It's fine, because we do not see them much. Over the holidays, he came over with his family and the kids were horrible. My daughter 11 and my son 10 wanted nothing to do with them, so I gave them permission to go to their rooms and lock the doors to keep the peace. My brother and his wife started complaining because my kids were being bad hosts. I said I wasn't going to make my children unhappy to appease his. Eventually, my kids did come out to try and play together again. His kids started pushing my son around. He told them to stop, but they wouldn't. My daughter told them to stop bugging her brother, but they wouldn't. They came to us and told us what was going on, and my brother called them tattletales and told them to just go play and deal with it themselves. I asked him if that's what he really wanted. He said yes, let kids be kids. So, I took him to my daughter's room and pointed out that she had multiple belts and trophies for martial arts. Then I showed him my son's room, same thing. Then I went back to the living room and told my kids, in front of him and his wife, that they had my permission to defend themselves. He immediately called his kids over and told them to behave. Their mom was not pleased. She said that her kids were just having fun. And I said that my kids' idea of fun was probably a little more violent than hers. Long story short, they behaved for about 10 minutes and then they decided to test my kids. One black eye and an arm bar later, his kids are sitting on a couch while my brother and his wife yell at me for raising brutes. For the record, each of his kids, although younger, are bigger than my daughter, and they had multiple warnings to play nice. So, currently there is a huge family fight because I let my kids beat up his innocent angels. Unfortunately for him, most of the people that have met his kids are asking what they did to provoke mine. My mom says that I should not have told my kids to defend themselves. I told her that she was welcome to host any and all gatherings that involved those brats. Last time they were there, they destroyed a stuffed animal that had the remains of her last dog. She doesn't like having them in her house either. Am I the a-hole? My mom says that I should not have told my kids to defend themselves. What kind of stupid nonsense is this? Instead of defending the kids who are being bullied and laying into your brother, she wants to further encourage the bad behavior? I wouldn't trust anyone around my kids who's defending the stepkids' behavior, and I'd make that known. Some people are so determined to keep the peace in the short term and avoid hard confrontations that they willfully blind themselves to problems that will cause long-term damage. Easier for mom to ignore the stepkid's bratty behavior and pressure other family members to do the same than have a hard discussion with her son about his and his wife's parenting, risking her relationship with said son in the process. I imagine that this isn't the first time OP's brother has thrown a fit to get his way. It has maybe threatened his mom with no contact if she didn't side with him in the past issues, while OP has historically been more measured. If that's the case, then mom is relying on OP being the reasonable party to appease brother, as she'd prefer to keep a strained relationship with both her children rather than risk losing one, even if that means taking the blatantly incorrect side in conflicts between them, knowing that OP probably isn't going to escalate the same way that brother would. Not a-hole. Always encourage your children to stand up to bullies, regardless of relation. Yep, this early lesson reaps lifelong benefits. Last story. Am I the a-hole for leaving my husband's kids out of my will? I, 52 female, married John, 58 male, 15 years ago. When we met, he had been widowed for about 3 years and had 2 children from his previous relationship, Mark, 24 male, and Lisa, 22 female. I never met his first wife, and as far as I know, they were a happy family until an accident took her away. And John was devastated for almost a year until he started coming out of his shell. When I came into the picture, he was still heavily involved with his former in-laws, and had 2 young children as a young father under his care, so he was taking all the help he could from them, and they were his emotional support. I had no problem with that, and made it known to him that I would never try to come between him and any relationship that he and his first wife had created. When things became serious and I was introduced to his kids, they made it known instantly to me that I would never replace their mother, and that they weren't particularly pleased with my presence at their home. I accepted that, and I, in agreement with John, decided that we would let our relationship advance slowly to let the kids adjust, and that I would never force myself as a stepmother or anything like that. And I didn't move in until they explicitly said it was okay, and we got married with their blessing. This process took years, and family and individual therapy because both me and John wanted to make sure that we were respecting his kids' boundaries. The result is that we cohabitated, but I never parented them. I went to their school functions, cleaned for them, cooked, and we talked and had a cordial relationship. But I never disciplined them, never put rules on them. They never came to me to ask permission for anything or tell me their secrets or ask me advice, which was fine by me. That was what they wanted. At this time, I had 2 children myself, Kate 13 female and Laura 11 female, and the girls do have a sibling relationship with John's children. They've moved out in this time, and although I assisted some with their college expenses and such, also when they were growing up, I am no longer financially involved with them. This holiday season, John was talking about his retirement plan. He works in a high-stress industry and has been saving up for early retirement and wanted to put his affairs in order to retire in the next couple of years. He still assists his children with a bit of a monthly allowance, and he told them he would be cutting that to put that money towards his own savings. And they did not take it well. They looked at me and asked if I could continue their allowance since I own my business and it's doing really well. And I said no. I do well for myself, but I'm not rich. And when John retires, I'll be the only income in the household. Plus, I'll have to save for my daughter's college fund plus my own retirement. As the conversation of my finances followed, they tried to say that it was my responsibility to take care of them. And I was just taken aback by that statement because they explicitly told me many times, including recently not just as children, mind you, that I was just their father's wife, not their mother. So, I have absolutely no responsibility towards them in that regard. When she heard that, Lisa got angry and brought up the fact that she expected to inherit my business someday because she grew up with it. I told her in no uncertain terms that she and her brother were entitled to nothing of mine, and certainly not my business which I built myself from the ground up since before I met their dad. They both got angry and left. My husband knew about all these arrangements well before all this, but is angry about how it all went down. It has been bombarded with messages about what a selfish witch I am since the argument, by his children and his former in-laws since New Year's, and even my daughters are mad at me now. So am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. They're not your kids, and you're not responsible for them. They themselves even made sure you knew this. They are rude and disrespectful, yet expect to be handed anything they want on a plate. You owe them nothing. If your business goes to anyone, it's your own daughters. Don't back down from this. They're not, never will be, and never have been your responsibility, which is what they wanted. But even my daughters feel like their siblings are part of this. I always felt like they as kids should put the boundaries and I shouldn't be the one overstepping. But now everyone is turning on me? I don't know if I really did something wrong. Your daughters had a different relationship with them than you, so it's understandable that they feel differently than you. They got to experience a sibling relationship with them while you were repeatedly told you're not family. You didn't do anything wrong. With how entitled his kids are acting now, I don't know if you should just give in anyways, but it's up to you and how you want to settle this argument. I just feel kinda bad, because I'm always reading in this forum about awful step-parent trying to force blended families and erase previous familial situations. And I always felt myself so superior by how I handled things and how I never let the memory of my husband's previous wife fade in my household, and the relationship of my daughters and their siblings. Now I feel like it's all going to the crapper. And maybe if I had done something different and tried to be more involved with John's children, we wouldn't be on this situation or something? I don't know. I am very confused and frustrated at this moment.